Hello and welcome to the Patrick Chapman Show. I'm Patrick Chapman and here we go. I'm with my friend Emir Phillips right now. And so Emir, you're a professor at a university. You teach finance and economics, am I right?
Correct, yeah, Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri.
Okay, and so I got a couple of questions about World War II because that's a good topic to start with. So I often hear that Hitler was elected, but then when I read this stuff, I don't find that in the literature. Was he elected or was he not elected?
He was elected in the sense he got in 33 more votes than others, but I don't believe he ever had a full majority of votes, and he was elected as chancellor. And then he acquired more and more power to where he and the Nazi Party acquired a dictatorship. So there's a reason it's ambiguous, because Hindenburg had to basically hand power over to him, and he took a level of power that no one had ever had, including Bismarck. So it's kind of a mixed analysis.
Okay, so he didn't actually win an election?
He won elections to a certain point, but he was never elected to be the dictator he ended up being.
When people make the argument that, well, Hitler was elected, is that a good argument, or is it kind of a stupid argument?
It's like a lot of things in life. The devil's in the details. There's a truth to it and a falsity. I mean, one side's going to use it to say Hitler was never elected, so he never had legitimate power. That's kind of the implication. But, if you said, did the German people overall support Hitler? I would argue overall, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did the Wehrmacht completely agree with Hitler? No. Manstein disagreed with him, but overall, did they follow his orders? Yes, perfectly no.
Okay, sticking with Hitler for a minute. Mm-hmm. Was he right to attack Russia? Because in my opinion, from what I've read, it was not. People come across saying that he was stupid, like there's a huge mistake and it cost him the war. I see it as a legitimate decision that was probably a good one given his circumstances. What do you think about that?
I mean, I want to state I'm not pro-Nazi or pro-Hitler at all, but from a dramatic point of view and knowing Joseph Stalin, I think Hitler was absolutely correct to attack Russia, and I don't even view him as the aggressor, because Stalin was going to attack him. We think that in a few weeks or a couple of years. There was a reason the Russian army was abutting the German border. It was in an offensive position, and Hitler was thrown by the Russians' unwillingness to pull away from the Tolstoy oil fields in Romania, which was the main oil and gas supplier of the Wehrmacht, was in Romania. And Hitler said in his own memoirs, to his own inner circle, that was a knife to his throat. And Stalin had read, he bought, I believe, 20,000 copies of Mein Kampf, had read it, and was hoping Hitler and Germany would wear itself out against France like they did in World War I. And once exhausted, Stalin had every intention of stabbing Hitler in the back, as he did Poland, and was going to take over the world. And when Hitler defeated France in 40 days, it really threw Stalin for a loop. He did not expect that. And had Stalin been a little more savvy, he would have pulled his troops off the German border to not be so threatened and build up his forces, because he had purged them in 1937. Russian army weren't quite ready, so maybe he wouldn't have attacked in a few weeks, but certainly next year he would have. So Hitler beat him to the punch.
So in that sense, I think it was actually not stupid of Hitler, but probably the stupidest thing he did was declaring war on the U.S.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest foreign policy blunder I've never understood, so I don't have much analysis to say that, people underestimated the United States in World War I. We come to the war in 1917, 250,000 troops landed in Europe, lose 70,000, we win a few battles with the Marines, Oregon Forest, Belleau Woods. It's enough to tip the tide. The French army's morale shattered. The Stoss attacks by the German army is working. America doesn't come in the war, Germany's going to win that war 100%. Germany should have just eaten what happened at the Lusitania. America was providing illegal arms in Lusitania. There's no doubt about that. The manifest is clear. So Germany was correct in their analysis. The United States was committing illegal acts. They were not neutral. And under international law, Germany was right, within their legal rights, to sink the Lusitania. But sometimes you're in your legal right, but it doesn't make sense, because it brought America to the war. It was better for Germany to eat it, allow America to illegally, partially supply the Allies, France and England, which they were doing because they had allowed France and England to borrow so much money that if France and England lost the war, the American economy was going to be in the dirt for the indefinite future, which is the real reason Woodrow Wilson got in the war. But America came in strong and quick and won the war, tipped the battle, so to speak, And for Hitler, who fought in the war and was blinded by mustard gas in World War One, so he knew high-tech warfare. He engaged in tank warfare, British tanks coming on him and mustard gas. He underestimated the Americans. People say because he wanted unity with Japan, which was secretly had a deal with Russia after Japan got slaughtered by the Russians. They were not even fighting each other. Hitler underestimated his alliance with Japan. Italy was somewhat of a joke. To declare the United States the biggest inexplicable, dumbest foreign policy move maybe since man has walked erect. So I can't explain it. I have no idea why he did it. It cost him. If he wouldn't declare a war on America, Germany beats Russia. It's a whole different. We're not having this conversation.
Okay. So sticking with World War II for a moment, but talking about movies, there have been great World War II movies, and it seems like an unlimited source for themes, and you can make another 100 movies based on that era. And what are some of your favorite movies from based around World War II?
Well, usually not the American movies, like Battle of the Bulge was painfully inaccurate. In fact, President Eisenhower went off on the movie Battle of the Bulge in Hollywood, so we had to make it peppy and move it along. He was furious at the historical inaccuracies. In historical accuracy, the Germans come through quite well. And Das Boot, with U-boat analysis, it's real hard to beat Das Boot. Stalingrad is a movie, I believe it's German, and it's outstanding. So, I mean, the Europeans tend to stick to the script, the historical script, better, but in terms of action and excitement, Americans are hard to beat. So it depends what you want. Historical accuracy, Das Boot, Stalingrad, or American pizzazz. It's up to you, I guess.
Do you remember the movie On a Midnight Clear? Or I don't know if it's On a Midnight Clear or just A Midnight Clear?
Vaguely.
It's the one, I don't want to give it away too much, but it's at the end of the war in France, and it's about the Germans, and they're trying to contact the Americans without getting themselves killed, but they don't speak English. And they build a snowman or something. There's snow all over the place, and they're trying to say "fuck Hitler," and they're pronouncing their German accent. Anyway, they end up making the contact, and they communicate that what they want is to create a false battle where nobody dies, but we shoot a lot, so it looks like a battle. And then we surrender. The Germans, meaning the Germans surrender, and then they don't die. That's the point. They don't die, and their families back home don't get killed.
Is this historically accurate?
I don't know, but it's a great movie.
Because it doesn't sound like it. But
yeah.
Too
Anyway,
complicated to be real, in my opinion. But I could be wrong.
There's one guy in the American troupe that's a little too gung ho. You know what I mean? And he's not the brightest. And he anyway. I don't want to spoil it, but. That I thought you would remember that, but I think I saw it with you. Anyway, great movie. Okay. That's okay. That's all right.
But it doesn't sound accurate.
It would come back to you if you saw it. Maybe I didn't describe it well. It's a great movie, though. Great movie. All right. Okay, you got one for me, or you want me to go with mine?
Well, since I'm in Poland here, and I myself did a podcast on nuclear energy, what is your assessment of Poland's nuclear energy situation?
Well, I think they could use it, definitely. I would be in favor of them building it. I think it would be...
That's what struck me right there, is
Yeah.
the fact that implicit in what you're saying is they don't have it. I was shocked to find out, and I think this is accurate, Poland does not have a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, they don't, as far as I know, but they've been talking about building them, and then there was a new idea to build more smaller ones, more than one, but smaller ones, and rather than the big ones. But I don't really know anything about it.
I mean, given the technological prowess of nuclear power plant builders like Russia, Finland, France, all top tier, not to mention South Korea, build small ones that go right off the coast. I mean, you couldn't ask for higher tech around you. What's Poland's excuse for not having nuclear power plant? Seems, what's stopping it really?
I don't know. Just other things probably. They have coal. The coal unions are very strong. The miner unions, they don't want to give that up. I mean, that's their livelihood, and it's a good one. The coal mines have problems, etc., but they're manageable problems. Let's say people die, but a few people. And but the workers have great jobs and they're well taken care of.
Yeah, I think that's the I think you hit it on that.
And for the consumers, coal is cheap. I used to burn coal in my furnaces right across the street here, you know. And you buy a ton of coal, it doesn't cost that much, and you burn it all winter, and then, you know, it's great. And then you supplement that with free wood from the forest, and you just, it's so cheap.
This doesn't sound that green or ecologically sustainable, but nonetheless, I think the other issue is I found out, and I don't know if I'm right on this, but it seems to me Germany sells a lot of their electricity to Poland, which they generate through nuclear power plants. So Poland is not incentivized institutionally to have nuclear power if they can buy it from Germany. But from a national security point of view and independence, I mean, energy independence and sovereignty, in my mind, historically coincide. And depending on Germany, given Poland and Germany's history, don't you think Poland should be more politically active in creating their first nuclear power plant, if on principle, if nothing else? I was shocked.
I think it'd be a great thing. They'd be more independent, economically or energy wise, and.
Do you feel the energy in the Polish public to do this, or not really?
It doesn't come up a lot. Just talking to my students and the people I meet, I hear about it a little bit in the press, but not with much fervor. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I brought it up here a couple of times, and everyone's interested, but no one thinks it's going to happen.
Another thing you got to remember is Poland suffered the consequences of Chernobyl, in the sense that maybe the wind didn't exactly blow back over Poland, but I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people here had to take, I don't know if iodine they had to drink, iodine or something like that. And, you know, it was not a pleasant situation, and who wants that, you know?
Okay, that's a good point.
So when you throw in nuclear power, everybody knows, Chernobyl.
Mm-hmm.
And not only Chernobyl, I mean, it's a serious risk. You know, you had the one in Japan, with
Fukushima.
Right, and then we had 3 Mile Island.
But now, to be fair, you know, Japan and Germany after that stopped their nuclear power production, and Germany continued. Germany's no longer building nuclear power plants, which I think is a big mistake. And Japan negated that decision. They realized they made a huge mistake. And to be real clear, more Japanese died in the evacuation than in the initial tsunami. So there was an institutional overreaction. And if they would have stayed calm, and then I think if they wouldn't have hurt their own nuclear power production, they would have been a lot better off. So Japan has admitted essentially making a pretty big socioeconomic error. Germany, not so much.
Okay. So now this is, I think, your 4th time in Poland. Am I right? I think it's 4. And so you came back. Your first time was back in 1995, I think. Yeah. And so, what are your impressions of Poland? Just generally, overall view from then, from now, changes, etc.
Well, when I first got here, you know, Americans had been told the Russians were with us. You know, I associate Poland with Russia because of the Warsaw Pact, so I didn't differentiate a lot. It's a Soviet empire. It's where the Warsaw Pact is, so I expected their socioeconomic industrialization to be, you know, pretty good. I was, you know, not quite equal to the U.S., but we were told the Russians are, you know, not far behind us. You know, we have to stay sharp. And when I came to Poland and went to Warsaw and Poznan and a few other places, I mean, the lack of development compared to the U.S. was shocking. I mean, Poland was 50 years behind the United States, not 10, not 20. So I felt a little duped by the American press on that. Maybe it's justified, maybe motivated to win the Cold War, but we won it by more than I thought when I first arrived. You know, people were very nice, considering we'd fought a Cold War for decades. And jumping from 94, 95 when I came to now, and every time I've come, the socioeconomic leaps in standard of living and just modernization is shocking. I mean, Poland has, I mean, they've done 100 years of development in half the time. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, like when I used to go home, you know, because I would go back to the States about, let's say, more or less once a year, a little less, maybe 3 times in 4 years or so, back, you know, 20 years ago. And the changes were happening so fast in Poland that if I were going to talk about what was happening in Poland when I was back in America, it was almost like I couldn't say it because it's changing faster than I could say what's changing. You know, like it's like, wow. When I got here, there were farmers using horses, like to pull the plow. Like you would see them in the field, and not just one like occasional guy, or not like one of those, you know, old-fashioned farms where they show you how they used to do it. Really working farms with horses, and also a lot. When they joined the European Union, everything changed because there were a lot of grandmothers who would have one cow or maybe two cows. Out in the villages, and I would talk to my students, and I would say, do you have a cow? No, but my grandmother does. And that would be the milk cow. So. So, and everything's different now. I don't know if you could buy a cow. I don't know.
I think because of urbanization and the higher wages in the city, and this happened in the South in the 50s, you just make more money in the cities, and so, and you're going to have corporate farming now, and, a downside of the massive socioeconomic quality of life upgrade of Poland, in my mind, is to what degree the Poles have allowed Americanization to change unduly, maybe, the Polish spirit. To what degree can you pick up another society's tech and not change yourself? Because it seems to be a little bit of anything American is better than anything Polish because of the tech. And that is a dangerous phenomenon that I find a little sad, because I don't know a ton of Polish history, but I know enough to know I'm an American. I think sometimes they get a little too pro-American or Americanized and forget the depth of their own culture and history.
Well, that reminds me of two thoughts. One is that the Americans are a little bit too focused on America. They don't realize what else is out there, and the things other cultures have to offer, or the way that they are different in a better way, and that America isn't always better in everything they do. That's one. The second thing is that from outside of America, like here in Poland, sometimes I get this little hint of a feeling in the conversation that the American empire isn't going to last forever, and maybe this is the beginning of the big end of it. And almost with a sense of satisfaction, like that's, you guys, you're a little too high and mighty, and we'll all be a little happy when you fail. What they don't realize, if America fails, everything's failing. Nothing's going to hold.
There's going to be big global repercussions.
It's going to be ugly for the world, for the free world. It's going to be a lot less free, I think. A lot less rich, a lot less, Anyway, those are two things I think. Okay, you got another one?
Yeah, to what degree do you fear or think there's a likelihood of Poland getting mired in the Russian-Ukraine war? And if mired in the war, is it good or bad consequences thereof? Because the press in Poland and the Ukraine are dancing around this line for 2 years, and if somebody makes a misstep, are we in it or not? Poland.
Poland? I think the likelihood is significant. I think it's over 50% that.
With who being the aggressor?
I can only answer that with Russia. I can't see it any other way, honestly. I don't think Poland's going to be the aggressor, but I don't know. When it comes to the under the table workings of diplomacy, and stuff like that, or somebody plants a bomb in a city, and then now we're off to, I don't know what's going to happen with stuff like that.
Poland right now seems very concerned about drones coming in.
Yes.
Just to play devil's advocate.
Well, because they have come in.
They have. Well, some of them are styrofoam. We'll get into that in a second. But first, take the Russian point of view for a second. Assume, and rightfully so, that the Biden administration was 100% behind destroying the Nord Stream pipeline, which is the primary pipeline for Russian and German gas. How does Russia not view that as an act of war when that's their no? If Russia destroyed the #1 oil and gas pipeline to the EU, would the United States view that as an act of war by Russia?
Yes, and then here's my question to that. In Russia's mind, do they have to know for a fact that it was the Biden administration that had it blown up, or do they have to assume it and feel pretty darn sure in order to call it an act of war?
You have to be sure enough to willing to kill people and die for it, so I guess it's a subjective determination, but I can tell you now, the Biden administration did destroy the Nord Stream.
You're 100% sure?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind.
So then there's probably, if there's no doubt in your mind, there's probably no doubt in the Russians' mind, and then that was an act of war. And then
the next day after the Nord Stream pipeline blew up, the Norway, Denmark, Polish Gdansk oil pipeline opened up the next day.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as that kind of coincidence in human history. It's just zero.
Okay.
So it was the West And that's more provocative than anything, in my opinion, the Russians have done to Poland in possibly triggering out as the aggressor war with Poland in the Russian-Ukraine war. In other words, already the U.S. in destroying Nord Stream has, in my opinion, traipsed itself as the aggressor and done a war worthy of declaration of war, not to mention the march to NATO, keep going in and possibly Ukraine entering NATO, which the Russians are never going to allow. They're never going to allow missiles there. In fact, they'll go to, I think, a tactical nuke or an EMP strike before they allow missiles in Ukraine. So the longer the war lasts, the West has to be willing to let half of Ukraine go, I think, or Poland might get drug into a war. And if Poland gets drug in, I think it'll mean all of NATO gets drug in because it's 450,000 Poles are part of NATO. And I don't think NATO will abandon Poland like we did in World War II. I don't think we'll do it again.
I don't. As far as I can tell, I don't think the Poles believe that. I think they're iffy on that.
Really?
Yeah, they don't.
They
trust
think we
no.
can dump them again, huh?
Oh yes. They're not stupid.
Okay.
They're not that stupid. No, they expect the knife in the back at any moment, and they've had it before, and they don't. Yeah, they're not. They know their history. So yeah, they don't expect much.
Okay, if that's true, and I don't doubt you at all, because they do know their history and they were stabbed in the back badly. From my analysis, which could be wrong, the Polish army, pretty good tech, pretty good army. In fact, I think if Poland fought Germany right now, Poland would win. Historical irony there. Poland has no ammo. In fact, the West has no ammo. They wasted it all in the Russian-Ukraine war. I mean, how does Poland cope with the lack of ammo given this geopolitical insecurity you've alluded to? Shouldn't they be stockpiling their ammo? Why aren't they, given what you just said, which I think you're probably right?
I don't know. I think my assumption is that there's a general assumption that it's not going to happen tomorrow, nor next week, probably not next month. So it's like, yeah, we don't have the ammo, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But the bridge is going to come faster than anybody thinks.
Here's my point.
Yeah.
To my knowledge,
Yeah.
Poland is not developing its own armaments. Specifically, I'm thinking artillery shells, which everyone's running out of in the Russian-Ukraine war, with the irony being North Korea supplying a significant amount of artillery shells for Russia, and South Korea providing artillery shells for NATO, the West, and the Ukraine. So Korea's area of expertise apparently is artillery shells. And, the U.S. is making one out of Pennsylvania, one place. It's ridiculous. The Poles, to my knowledge, don't have any armament industry creating Polish weaponry, specifically, hardcore, simple, effective weaponry like artillery shells, like drones, Polish drones. I mean, the Ukraine drones are good. You got Iranian drones, Chinese drones. Where are the Polish drones? And that, to me, I know you say they don't expect it to happen tomorrow, and I agree with you that the actions show that. But I see a lack of action in Poland developing its own drone industry and artillery shell industry, which shows institutional confidence. So, I mean, if they have the fear you say they have, and I think you're probably right, then they particularly need a dumbass award.
Okay.
Because given your history, you should be at least developing drones and artillery shells, and you're not doing it. Shame on Poland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good point. From the Polish point of view, do you think the Poles should not try to provoke Russia, or do you think
Yes.
but the other half of that is either that, don't provoke Russia, or the provoking has been done?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the provoking's done yet. Putin's too sophisticated. There's been provoking,
Yeah.
but no. The level of war that would happen with Poland and Russia is so big that it'd take more provoking. Poland has to view itself as Syracuse in the Punic Wars. So before Syracuse farted, they need to call Rome and Carthage. Because you're just in a bad situation. You got the Punic Wars going, you're Syracuse. You're in the middle of North Africa and Italy. That's the way it is. During the Cold War, Austria and Sweden didn't have an independent thought. They called Moscow and DC before anyone crossed the street. Because your position. Poland now has the same position as Syracuse in the Punic Wars, Austria and Sweden in the Cold War, and need to act accordingly. They need to be on everyone's side and no one's side, all at once. And everyone needs to believe that they're with them. The Poles are sophisticated. They've got bad history with Russia and Germany, and they need to be with NATO and not with NATO. They need to pull that off. I know that's not easily done, and they're not doing it. So, but the war with Russia is not inevitable, no.
Okay. Good. Now, you used to do your own podcast, but you haven't done one in a while. What's going on with that?
Don't want to really. It's too much time and energy, and you know, with podcasts, a lot of it is who got in first. You know, in the digital world, getting in first, because there's once you're in, there's economies of scale or a high order of magnitude, notoriety. You know, I'm not going to put kittens playing with other kittens on the podcast. So I just, it's a lot of work, and just didn't have other things to do. You know,
Okay.
like writing other stuff.
Was it fun doing it, or was it expensive? What were the pluses and
It was a
minuses?
expense for me as a professor in publishing. Expense is my time and energy. You know, money was a factor, but time and energy, because I could be doing other things that I need to do, like publish, write, you know, teach, create courses, curriculum. It was fun. I was doing it with Jamie Brand, and my students provoked me to do it because they told me I was wrong on nuclear energy. The University of Arkansas was teaching macroeconomics, and they were right, and I was wrong. You know, and they educated me on nuclear energy. And to prove a point, I did the podcast with a lot of the views we got and discussing with my students. So it was really arguing with my students at Walton College, University of Arkansas, that provoked me to do the podcast, and I did get a lot of student input. So that's what I enjoyed a lot too, a lot of constructive criticism from the students, and I enjoy that. So that I do miss.
Okay. I like to talk about football a lot, so let's go to that a little bit. Just because, just a few years ago, I used to hear this when I was a little more of a fan. I know you and I have both gotten kind of away from the NFL, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to say that I heard this comment at least once, but I think more than once, where today's game is different from the old game. It's not the same football anymore. There's a lot more passing and this stuff. And then I go back and I watch some of these clips on YouTube of like the games from the 1950s or even the 40s, and I see a play, and it's like about as fancy as it could be with the technique and the razzle dazzle or and I'm like, these guys are running some pretty complicated plays, and this is 1940s or 50s, and I'm like, has the game changed that much to you in your opinion when it comes to strategy and play calling and playmaking?
The level of strategy is always 100% of people's capability, whether it's tic-tac-toe, checkers, chess, or football from the 40s or football now. The rules, within those rules, both teams are playing and utilizing every strategy. And every time there was a rule change in the NFL, every team's working on it quickly. How you rush the quarterback, how they're protected, then it opens up the passing game. So it wasn't that the football got necessarily better, it's just they wanted to increase market share. The business of football drove most of the rule changes in football. From running, which is too complicated for most of your viewers, many of whom never actually played football. The NFL is always dying to get more female audience, because the number one reason men don't watch more football is because the women don't want to watch more football. So if the women watch football, the NFL is just ecstatic. And so the running game is complex, whereas a pass, you see a pass, it's flagrant, it's obvious, it's exciting, it's complicated to do, hand off, throw it, catch it, yards after the catch, that sort of stuff. And that's what drove the game. I mean, if you change the rules, again, you know, for example, TV commercials, there's one. Why did NFL players get bigger? Because you have TV commercials during the game, and those 350-pound guys need to breathe. Go back to when they used to play within, I'd say, 2 hours, and you didn't get those TV commercial breaks. Those guys all have heart attacks. The smaller teams would be racking up points in the third and fourth quarter. So as TV commercials came in, a guy could have been a great player, and all of a sudden he's going against a guy 40 pounds heavier because of the TV commercials. So that has nothing to do with football, and that changed the entire dynamic of the game. Those 340-pound guys can run a 4.840. Yeah, how many times? Twice. You know, they cannot go fast. And I think the NFL, why don't the NFL players go with no huddle, no snap more often? Because you'll see them rushing it, and then what happens? TV break. Kind of ruins the whole strategy and the whole momentum. You'd see a lot more of that if they said, okay, when you guys go in a no huddle, like Houston did with Warren Moon, right? Mm-hmm. There are no TV breaks. There has to be in the contract that the football strategy dictates if the football strategy trumps the TV commercial.
Yeah.
But that's a lie.
Yeah.
Nothing trumps money for the NFL. I mean, the NFL would sell its soul for $5.
Yeah, which is why I'm not a fan anymore. That's one of the big reasons. So. But Okay, but let's stick with that for a minute and go to the West Coast offense, because I know you were a big fan of that. And do people still use that? What is it? Let's start with what is it?
Well, I mean, people used to do the lateral game, like Oakland, vertical game, bombs away, play action pass, and the rules were you get behind the guy, you go all the way for a touchdown. The West Coast offense said, instead of running the ball for 4 or 5 yards, why don't we try passing it? Because if a team is playing a 4-3,
Passing it for 4 or 5 yards?
yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
getting. Attacking the flat. So if you're a 4-3 and you don't have good linebackers, and that's why the NFL switched to a 3-4, like the Saints, where they had one of the best linebacker cores of all in the 90s. Pittsburgh Steelers get away with it because they had two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Lambert and Jack Ham. It's ridiculous. But in general, your team dynamic could change, and all of a sudden the tight end is not a blocker. If he's a good receiver, Christensen of Oakland Raiders, or however, it changes the whole dynamic. So instead of running, you could pass. But you got to have a quarterback with a quick release. It changes the dynamic, and then Bill Walsh comes along, and you're attacking it vertically, attacking the sides. The NFL, it finds it exciting. There's more rule changes to help it. You can't touch a receiver after 5 yards, and receivers get more protection. So it opened it up. I mean, I think Bill Walsh, people saw what he did with the Niners, and the rules followed him because it was exciting, and it was sophisticated, and it was high skill. And so Bill Walsh and the Niners changed the game.
Would you say he was one of the best coaches ever?
I mean, it's hard. He's definitely I'd say this. He was one of the most innovative coaches and had one of the greatest legacy effects on the game, because we're still playing his style of football after 40 years. And I don't think that's not even true of smash mouth football, where they used to run up the middle, Larry Zonka, tight running game, power running. I mean, so yeah, he's got to be way, way up there in terms of innovation and legacy effect.
Okay, you got anything else?
No, not really.
Okay, let me go to mine. I got one more, but if you want to talk about it, we can be done. Education. Your kids. Are you satisfied with the education of your kids?
Not really. I mean, I think in education in America, we fail to realize that part of the education system involves character development, vice and virtue, which we don't want to go into because it sounds religious, morality, but whatever it is, because when people come out of, say, for example, university, you want your students educated, in other words, having a knowledge base of, say, business, for example, marketing, accounting, management, whatever, information systems, IT, but beyond that, all of them, and say the business school, I'll focus on the business school, need to show up to work on time, need to work collaboratively, you know how to network, to sacrifice, need to not expect a job raise in the first 100 hours they work. And that involves character. I mean, you learn a lot playing football or team sports. That's why we supposedly do sports. It's become exceedingly narcissistic and about oneself, but it's supposed to have been from the Greek culture. You did sports because we can't practice sword fighting with real swords all day because we would kill each other. So the Greeks would play sports to be in shape and work as a team. So when they did the hoplite infantry, they all worked as a unit and they would kill everybody. And the hoplite infantry that worked the best and most cohesively until they met the Roman legion would kill everybody. And so them that played the sports the best were the best killers. And we've applied that in America historically into business. Those who were good in sports, we assumed it was a transfer to business because you work as a team. There's a quarterback, he's like a CEO, or any leader, it could be basketball, baseball. But the point is, sacrifice for the team. It's not all about money, it's not all about you, team. There's no I in team. How else can you say it? And in education now, I find that the sports doesn't do that nearly as well, and school doesn't focus at all on character development. It focuses on experience, subjective pleasure, and it's very expensive. And kids come out of debt for an experience that may or may not help them vocationally. So I am saddened and disappointed by education, K through 12, and to a certain extent higher education currently in its current form.
Can you say something like a little bit about what happened with that Santa Ana? Was it Santa Ana school district that you sued in the 1990s?
Well, in that case, the they used to have CTPS scores, which were an objective criteria of how your kid was doing in school. You know, like an ACT, SAT, but this is for elementary school kids, and every state kind of had it. But it was CTPS. And in that instance, the school district was not sending the results, which were yearly, to the parents. I believe there was an agenda behind it. You don't want objective criteria. There's a similar agenda now with the ACT and SAT, because they don't want parents to know their actual kid's ability. And in that particular school, the kids by elementary school, they were graduating on average at least 2 years behind in reading and math. And if you're leaving the 6th grade 2 years behind the state average in reading and math, you can bet on a predictive analysis that that student's not going to do well, and not many of them to go to any type of college. They're falling too far behind too fast. And the killer, here was the killer part of the argument, they were all getting A's and B's in the school. Because of social promotion in California, the students were just getting passed. And not just passed with C's, I mean, they were getting A's and B's. The average grade was a high B, and they were 2 years behind in reading and math. And the objective criteria to indicate to the parents that there's a great dichotomy between the subjective grades given because of social promotion to the teachers union and the actual objective scores from the CDBF scores, similar to SAT, ACT. There was a massive dichotomy, and the parents were in a state of ignorance. And they didn't realize it until their kids were in high school and they didn't know anything. You know, people graduated from high school couldn't even read or write. And so, you know, I guess that was in the 90s, and unfortunately that trend, the case has become somewhat of a precursor, because I think if parents saw what their kids were getting at the end of 4 years, you know, they should have their kids take an ACT or SAT, not even to get into school. Take the ACT, SAT at the beginning of your 4-year start. I don't care what school you go to. And at the end of 4 years, take the SAT and ACT and see how much you've improved. And I know it's not perfect, and there's a lot more to life than just those scores, but, you know, if you got just say for the sake of argument, a 22 on the ACT, and then 4 years later you get a 26, 27, 28, okay. You know, something. But if you get a 22 again, I mean, something is awry, something is amiss, and you have to look at your $300,000, $400,000 of student debt going, surely every $100,000 worth of point on the ACT or, you know, SAT equivalent. And I don't know if that's true, and that's alarming. Mm-hmm. It's alarming.
Now you got a good deal for the kid that you were standing up for in the courts there, right? In the end, and then do you know whatever happened? I don't know the person's name.
I didn't. Lourdes Gutierrez was the mom.
Yeah.
No, because it's hard to keep track of a client, so I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
But I was more concerned, to be fair, on the socioeconomic analysis and what was going on. I just thought it was fundamentally unfair that parents were kept in ignorance, and you know, and I think that's to a certain degree even more true now, and that's sad.
Good. Okay, I think that's about it then.
All right.
Good. Okay, if anybody has any comments, we welcome them. Thank you.